Welcome to Absolute Trust Talk with your host, Kirsten Howe. Absolute Trust Talk brings you tips, tools, advice, and interviews to help you build a reliable knowledge base on estate planning, business, and finance to start preparing for your future today.
Hello, and welcome to Absolute Trust Talk. I am Kirsten Howe. I'm the managing attorney at Absolute Trust Counsel, and joining me here is one of our associate attorneys, Ariana Flynn. Hi, Ariana. Nice to see you.
Hi. Good morning. It's great to see you too.
As estate planners, we spend a lot of time and energy doing planning for our clients to help them, do a lot of things. But one of the things that a lot of them are focused on is avoiding probate. And so we're always trying to avoid probate. It is a good idea to avoid probate because it's expensive. It takes a long time. So if you can, it is a good idea. Sometimes we can't avoid it, though, because it's too late. Either our person has already died. We can't do planning after we die. Or our person has become incapacitated and they aren't any longer capable of doing planning. So sometimes we have to do a probate and there's no real way around it. They came to my attention in a couple of cases in the last 2 weeks that maybe we're doing too good a job of putting that fear of probate into the ether. I had a couple of clients who were concerned about an elderly family member who didn't have an estate plan. And they just were, panicked at the thought of having to do a probate because they weren't able to do any planning. And once I kind of walked them through what it's like, what to expect, I could tell that they were relieved and they thanked me and they felt like, they got some value out of that meeting. So it occurs to me again that maybe we ought to do a little more education just around the nuts and bolts kind of what a probate really is like. Because there's not enough out there. There's a whole lot of, probate is terrible. But sometimes we have to do it. So we're going to have this short, several episode little series just on the basics of probate. And today you are the lucky audience who is going to listen to the first episode. We're going to be talking about, I call it, what is an executor? But really the correct phrase is personal representative. So Ariana, why don't you start with, a personal representative and an executor?
Yeah, absolutely. Personal representative is the person who basically handles the probate and takes the estate through probate. And you can be one of two personal representatives. You can be the executor or you can be an administrator. And what that means is if somebody dies with a will, it's just a difference of name. You're the executor, you're appointed executor. If they die without a will, you're the administrator. Same roles, same duties, pretty much. It's just one different titling. One has a will, one does not have a will.
Yeah. So it's the same probate process, but your title depends on whether you had a will or not. Okay. So how does the court choose an executor? Now I'm getting ahead of myself. The executor or the administrator is a person appointed by the court to do the probate. How does that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. So the court doesn't seek you out or anything. The person themselves, they have to petition the court to be appointed as either executor or an administrator. So you have to, submit all of these filings, all of these pleadings to the court to ask them to be appointed in that role.
Okay. And so when there's a will, that person is called the executor, and they are the person that is named in the will. The decedent will say, this is who I want to be my executor, right in the will. And that person will be appointed by the court unless there's some controversy about them. Some other person comes forward and says, oh, no, this person should not be the executor. But when there's a will, that's who's going to be appointed, barring some weird circumstance.
Right. Absolutely.
And how does it work when there's not a will?
Yeah, so kind of on the flip side of it, when there's no will, nobody's appointed, there is codified list of people with priority in the individual's life. So I think it's, something like spouse is your number one, and then number two is your children, and then number three is your grandchildren. And it literally goes over a list of, 15 different people in order of priority who can ask the court to be appointed as administrator. So again, if a child and a spouse both petition the court, one of the factors that they'll look at is who has priority in appointing the administrator too. Obviously coupled with, just good cause, the situation. So it's different, but they will look to the probate code to see who has priority.
Right. And at least our probates, there's rarely ever kind of a dispute about who's going to file the petition and be appointed by the court. But it could happen. And like you said just a second ago, there could be competing petitions, and then the judge has to decide who's the right person for the job.
Right. And I would say a lot of the time too, I guess not conflict, but the issues are, gathering all the documents and making sure that everything is complied with and everything is followed, because it's a, very tedious process. So, with our cases, it's not so much competing petitions, but it's just making sure that they are sufficient enough to move forward and be appointed.
Right. Okay. And there's one other job title that we haven't talked about, which is related to this, a special administrator.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds super. And we sometimes have to do that. What are we doing there?
Yeah, so you can ask the court, because it takes a long time to be appointed administrator. So clients think, it'll take a couple weeks, maybe even a month, but it'll take longer than that, depending on the court's availability and when they can set the hearing. And so in the meantime, if there is a need or a cause, and this has to be a legal cause to appoint someone in the interim, if there's a house that's vacant and subject to foreclosure, for example,
some kind of urgency.
The court.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. An emergency, an urgency, or if a prior administrator, passes away too, and they need somebody to kind of step in right away too. So you can also ask the court to be appointed special administrator. Again, with that comes a little bit more cost as well, but you get kind of emergency type of situations, and you can be appointed in the interim while you're waiting for your, official appointment as administrator.
Right. So the special administrator is like a preliminary step. You still have to do the full-on probate petition, but in a situation where something needs to be taken care of now, we don't have 3 months to wait for a hearing. That can happen, and that's called a special administration.
Right. And it was very important that you said you do have to petition for the general appointment as well. So it can't just be the special administrator. You do have to petition for the general as well.
Yeah. You got to go through the whole vetting process. So,
right.
Okay. So that's our first little episode on sort of the nuts and bolts of probate. Hope it was informative for you. Ariana, thanks so much. As always, very, very helpful. And
of course, thanks for having me.
Of course. And we hope you learned something, and we look forward to connecting with you next time.
Thank you for joining us today for another episode of Absolute Trust Talk Live. If you enjoyed listening in, then don't forget to subscribe. You can find us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you may listen by searching Absolute Trust Talk. While you're there, we would also love for you to leave us a review. And then why not share your favorite episodes with family, friends, or colleagues too? You can find all of our shows and corresponding show notes by visiting absolutetrustcouncil.com. You'll also find a variety of other free resources, including our ebooks, videos, blogs, presentations, and more. If you need help with your estate planning or administration, we also offer a free discovery call to help get the process started. You can find more information on booking your session by visiting absolutetrustcouncil.com/scheduling. If you join us for the broadcast, you can submit questions during the show. But if not, don't worry. You can always get in touch with us by sending a quick message to info@absolutetrustcouncil.com. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you soon. This podcast is not meant to take the place of legal advice from an attorney and does not create an attorney-client relationship. If you do have a legal question or issue, please consult with an attorney.